Welcome to the Carolina Girls Podcast with Heather and Cher.
Hey guys, I'm Heather.
And I'm Cher.
And I'm Aimée.
And today we're the Carolina Girls Podcast.
We have a special guest today.
I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
I'm so glad you're here. So I guess we're just going to jump right in.
Sure.
Okay, first of all, Heather and I just finished playing our basketball tournament.
They were amazing. Truly, I was so impressed by you guys. My knees, my ankles, and my
back,
my heart and lungs couldn't have taken what you guys did today.
My knees and ankles will be in a lot of pain tonight for sure. For sure. But, listen, the only thing that matters to me is that I will not be wearing a North Carolina State
shirt.
Yes,
y'all. I lost.
Big time. Big league. Big league.
Really bad.
However, let me go ahead and throw it out there. Guys, she lost, but she had the play of the game when she stuffed one right back in my face.
That was the highlight of my show today. That was good.
I'm pretty sure I celebrated her blocking my shot more than anybody else. I was so excited about it. Now she did yell too, but
I did. I kind of got like, yell.
I love the sportsmanship you both showed though, because every time one of you did something great, the other
it was a high five.
A high five. It was nice.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's great.
She had some good shots too. So I'm proud of her. She came in second place in the whole tournament, y'all. Their team was balling. They did so good. And the whole event in itself was absolutely amazing. So, it was brought on by
Well, actually, why don't we say this?
Yeah.
So, Aimée, why don't you tell us really what company you're with and what you do?
Yep. So I'm with Movement Mortgage, and my current title is National Director of Affiliate Relationships, but I've been with Movement since day one, and I've probably had a dozen different titles in that time.
I was going to say, I think I literally just said to you, so what is your official title today? I always joke around whenever anybody says, well, who is Aimée? I'm like, oh, yeah, she was employee number -1.
Yeah.
Like, she was employed before Movement was Movement.
That's true. Right. It's true. So, my job, I sort of am the liaison between Movement Mortgage and all of our affiliated companies, which are companies that serve the mortgage process and the Movement Foundation. So all of the profits from those entities goes directly to either the Movement Foundation or the KM Foundation. And we're able to, with that money, do some really incredible things, which is what today was about. So,
Right. Well, why don't you tell our listeners what today was about?
Yeah.
I think they would be interested to know.
Well, first of all, we're recording this from the cafe of the Movement Middle School on Freedom Drive, and today's event was put on by Sports Outreach Ministries, which is a partner that we've had for a number of years. They provide clinics here at the Movement schools. We've done mission trips to places like Colombia, South America with Sports Outreach Ministries, and they were one of the recipients of a $10,000 Grace Works grant that we gave last year to put this event on. And the event was geared towards reconciliation. Obviously a lot happened in our country in the last few years around the George Floyd murder and the resulting feelings in the community. And so Sports Outreach wanted to find a way to bridge that gap. So the 3-on-3 tournament, each team, there were 12 teams, had one Movement Mortgage or affiliate employee plus a Movement Mortgage student, not Movement Mortgage student, Movement School student, and a first responder. So you guys were playing basketball with police and firefighters here in Charlotte that serve in this community. And the effort was really just to bring those three groups together in celebration of community around something fun. There was a faith element to it, but again, it was about building bridges in this community, which is really everything that we're trying to achieve through the Movement Schools and the Movement Foundation, which, to be honest, if you guys don't know much about Movement Mortgage, you might be kind of like, what are you talking about? Should I just lay it out there?
Lay it out there, girl.
Lay it out there. Absolutely.
Throw it out there.
So, and stop me if you want me to go in a different direction, but Movement Mortgage was created at the heart of the mortgage crisis in 2008. Yep. And Casey and Toby, the co-founders, had a vision for creating a financial services company that had a very different focus. Specifically, the objective was to create a community that loved and valued one another, loved and valued their customers, and then turned around and loved and valued their communities. And that resonated to me when Casey shared the vision in 2007. As a matter of fact, he said, I want to treat every customer like they were my little sister. And I'm a big sister, so that really, that resonated. I get that. You'd never do anything for your sibling, except when you're, battling it out as kids. but as grown-ups, you're always going to act in your sibling's best interest. Right. And that was not the case in the financial services world in 2007 and 2008. So that was refreshing. And then he talked about wanting to be part of a team that was beyond just the clocking in and clocking out, but that you were doing life with, which is so much what you guys have shown in your entire careers. And, I've listened to your podcast, and I know that the intermeshing of the work you do in your job and then the community that you live and love and do life with is important. And God, that sounded good. And then the third was that they wanted to give away their profits. And I'm not going to lie, at the time I thought, well, it's really easy to talk about giving away your money before you have any.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We can all talk about how generous we're going to be.
Right.
The proof is in the pudding once you have the money. And so we started in 2008 with this vision. And, in 2012, this is actually right now is the 10th year anniversary of the Movement Foundation, which we created to be the charitable giving conduit for the profits of Movement Mortgage. And, we started that first year, we did only $36 million worth of loans, which, to be honest, looking back seems like a teeny tiny number. But then it was like, we have arrived. Now we have loan officers that do $36 million in a month, which is just crazy.
It's just absolutely
staggering.
Insane. Yeah.
But then by 2012, we had done $1 billion that year, and we were seeing the results, the profit that we could now start to do new things. And so we created the Movement Foundation, and there's a lot of ways since then that we have spent money through the Movement Foundation to give back or to contribute to community efforts. We've given actually over $367 million to date.
Wow.
Which is staggering. It's funny, if you were to look outside the window at the end of this hallway, you would see downtown Charlotte, and you would see stadiums, right? Yeah. Which have the names of financial institutions that I'm sure do wonderful things, in their own direction, but man, they're spending their time and money to put their name on a building that the 1% of the 1% of this city will get to enjoy.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And here in the shadow of that, in West Charlotte, you've got a community that is kind of cut off the way the highway structure was. It became a no man's land for many years.
It was.
And a lot of big empty boxes, the blight of a lot of urban environments. And we said, we don't want to be known for our name on the side of a stadium. We want to be known for what we're able to do to serve the communities where we operate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and man, so the first big thing that we did is we participated in the purchase of a complex of homes in West Charlotte, where we provided subsidized rent for a number of families. We also provided free space for a few organizations that were building a community base of operations to help serve and support this, the West Side. And the next big thing we did was we purchased a 40,000 square foot commercial space about half a mile down the road that became what we call the Movement Center. And it was like an electrical manufacturing. They manufactured lifts, and it had been empty for many years. It had been, acquired by the grandchildren of a family, and they had this empty building, and they sold it to the Movement Foundation for a really great price because it was a tax write-off to sell it to a nonprofit.
Right.
And we were able to turn around and renovate that space and create a cooperative environment for nonprofits to base their operations out of. So, a nonprofit like the Harvest Center, who was one of our flagship tenants at the beginning, they were paying somewhere between $25 and $30 a square foot for their commercial space that they were operating out of. They came to the Movement Center and they were paying $6 to $8 a square foot.
Wow.
So, by being able to redeploy that money to the essential services, they were able to grow their ministry, right? And they were serving, 300 to 600 situationally homeless Charlotteans every week a meal.
Yep.
And, really cool innovation came out of that. The gentleman that they had doing the cooking, it was not about a soup kitchen. It was about, let's create a, 5-star dining experience and honor with dignity these folks who are coming in to be fed. And so if any point you had walked in there, you would have seen business leaders from Charlotte who would come and join that lunch so that they could break bread with those folks in this community that, we're trying to change the trajectory of their lives. And so over the years, the Movement Center has become a space to house a number of different organizations. Harvest Center was blessed by a great opportunity to take over a big property close to the airport, and now the Dream Center is in their space. Also, there is Missions Place, which is an organization that provides a space for nonprofits to have meetings. That the nonprofit that doesn't need a full-time space, but wants to get together with their board or wants to host a presentation or a class. So there's a bunch of different organizations that are using that space. Urban Promise is in there, which is an incredible organization that hires young adults, so teenagers really, to be mentors to children in the community. Which, gosh, we're all moms of young adults, and so we know it's been joked that I might think I'm cool, right? Because I, of course, think I'm cool.
We all think we're cool.
Yeah, but I'm never going to be as cool as the basketball player from West Charlotte who is mentoring a third grader.
Sure, right.
And so what happens is the kids being mentored have someone that looks like them and they can relate to look up to, and that tends to drive their performance. And then the one that is being the mentor, when you've got somebody that's looking up to you, it changes how you feel like you need to arm yourself. And so they just, I'll get the stats wrong, but they just graduated like their 4th crop of kids that have gone on to 4-year universities or higher learning institutions.
That's amazing.
And most of them for the first time in their family's history.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So also in that space, there's Christ-Centered Community Counseling, which is a organization that provides therapy, mental health services, and
which we definitely need.
And
Especially after the last 2 years.
For sure. And that's not a commonplace thing to go to in a lot of communities, right? Communities of color, communities of perhaps socioeconomic disadvantage. If you don't have great insurance and a therapist is expensive, right? We know that.
Absolutely.
So we actually at Movement Mortgage pay retail for counseling services through C4 to provide for our employees who are going through hardship, which creates a subsidy to enable C4 to provide therapy for patients in this community that might not have the resources to pay for it. There's also a medical clinic in the Movement Center, which is huge because it's a partnership with Novant Health.
Right.
And it's called the Movement Clinic, powered by Novant, and they've got a cardiologist in there on Wednesdays, and they've got a pediatrician, and it is a state-of-the-art medical facility.
So if memory serves me correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but for this area over on the west side, the closest pediatrician is...
Before the Movement Clinic opened, there was not a pediatrician within 5 miles of this location.
Right, and the primary means of transportation were
bus lines. Right.
And the pediatrician was not on the bus line either, was it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure if you dug hard enough, you could find a pediatrician on a bus line somewhere. But the reality is,
it was not easily accessible.
Not easily accessible. So, you've got a kid with an ear infection, which, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Double ear infection.
Right. And you maybe are juggling a couple jobs, or the jobs that you don't have a car and you're on the bus line and that's your transportation, and your kid has what you suspect is an ear infection. It becomes really an overwhelming obstacle to overcome to get your kid to the doctor.
Just to get him to the doctor.
Sure. So what ends up happening is they don't go to the doctor, and then, and this is a generalization, obviously this is not, the case in all scenarios, but if that is your dynamic where you're on the bus line or you're using that as your transportation and you've got a sick kid and there isn't a pediatrician nearby, you tend not to run them to the doctor until now it becomes a crisis, and then you have to go to the emergency room.
Right.
And we all know what an emergency room bill for the exact same service is going to cost.
Exactly.
Right.
So it creates a cycle that makes it really hard to get out of. And so jumping ahead, Movement Center down the road, a bunch of great organizations in there, all of them paying way below market rent, being able to create synergy from being in the same place, serving the same communities. There's 2 different churches that operate out of there. Charis AMC, which is one of Movement's affiliated companies. Affiliated, I'm using loosely because we don't own it. It is its separate entity, but it was built to serve the Movement process, and 100% of its profits go to the KM Foundation, which we're a part of, is in that space as well. But Harvard and Stanford did this study that said that the zip code that you are born to, and this is amazing, it has the largest indicating factor of your lifespan and your long-term economic health. Which, we all want to believe in this notion of the American dream where anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and be phenomenally successful. And certainly there are people that do. There's, people I know, people you guys know who came from, little means and made great successes of themselves, but they are the anomaly,
right,
statistically. Mm-hmm. And so for children born into poverty, the likelihood is they're going to stay in poverty.
Right.
And that doesn't sit right with me. I'm guessing with you. I'm guessing with anybody who really realizes that, And those of us who have had great opportunities, there becomes a great responsibility to do something with that opportunity. And that's where, Casey and a bunch of really smart people had a lot of conversations around how do we impact that in a significant way. And you guys know me, and my heart is vulnerable children. I am a foster parent, and we've done a lot over the years to engage in a really kind of grassroots, dig into it kind of way. But it becomes an overwhelming obstacle to look at the dynamic that exists and the systems that don't work and the things that are really a challenge and feel overwhelmed and sort of like, there's what can I do?
No answer.
Right.
No,
What can I do? What can I do? Yeah. And so, I've always been like, well, I do what I can with what I have where I am. Mm-hmm. And but Casey, he's a really visionary thinker, and he's less likely to do that kind of stuff that I'm doing and more likely to go, how do we look at the dynamic in these kids' lives and interrupt it? And the reality is, kids go to school, and so they have a big chunk of their day, and they go for 5 days a week, and if you're in a year-round school, they go for a majority of the year. Right. So you have an opportunity to interact with kids in a big chunk of their lives. And what if you could do it in a way that took a different approach to education? And that's where the notion of the Movement School was born. So we opened the first Movement School in 2017, half a mile down the road from the Movement Center.
Old Kmart.
It was an old Kmart. I think it had been empty for 6 or 7 years. This parking lot was known as a high traffic area for drug transactions and sex trades, right? So because think about it, it's big empty.
Sure.
Right. So we were able to acquire the building and the entire property, and we renovated the building and turned it into a state-of-the-art school. You guys have toured it.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
It's
absolutely
awesome.
And last time that Taylor was home from being overseas, her being a teacher, the first thing I wanted to do was to take her over there, and she was like, wow, this is amazing.
It is. There are smart boards in every classroom. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a giant iPad that has all of this cool technology for education, and
it's touchscreen.
And it's touchscreen, and it's super cool. All the kids have Chromebooks. They're fed a hot breakfast and a hot lunch for free. Busing is provided within a certain, geographic range is free. Uniforms, they're given uniforms to start the school year. So there's no what are you wearing versus what am I wearing? We're all wearing uniforms.
Right.
And the children are called young scholars and future leaders.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing.
The power of those words spoken over these kids on a repeated basis, is powerful.
Yeah, it is.
So whenever anyone asks me, why do you work for Movement Mortgage? This is my why.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think there are several type of people who have servants' hearts, and I call them the do-gooders.
I think you called me a flower planter once.
And the flower planters. And the flower planters. And so the flower planters are the people that get in and do the hard work.
Yeah.
And the money makers are the ones who go out and make the money for the flower planters to do the hard work. And they both have big hearts, and they both are using their God-given gifts in different ways to make it happen. And so when I originate a mortgage at Movement, not only am I helping make that happen because I've done that, but I'm also doing a service for the client. But I take it one step further and let the client know about what them getting a mortgage really does. So every month when they pay a mortgage payment, they're helping send a kid to school.
Exactly.
And, that's huge. It's huge.
I go over that same thing with all of my clients whenever I talk to them. I was like, please go and look at Movement and look at Movement Foundation and everything that we do for this community because we're doing loans.
Well, and thank you both, because you are the ones that make the money to make it possible for us to do what we do through the Movement Foundation. And the children who go to the Movement School, the statistics are that 90% of them qualify for free and reduced lunch, which is, a Title I designation. 90%.
Right.
Now, 100% of them are given free breakfast and lunch at the Movement School, but 90% of them qualify according to the federal guidelines. 65% of them are classified as living below the poverty line, which I Googled it recently because I've been saying that for a while and I was sort of curious. And
what does that mean?
$26,000 a year for a family. Can you imagine? Yeah. I mean, I know how blessed I am that to me that's a staggering notion that you could raise a family on that amount of money. And roughly 10% of them are part of the foster system. So, that reality brings a different level of stress and anxiety to a child's life. It affects their processing and their ability to identify and make healthy choices. And if you're a kid who's had a toothache for 6 weeks and you've got a sibling who's incarcerated and you're maybe living in a broken family dynamic, your biggest concern isn't, did I get my math homework done?
Right.
You're bringing a different level of stress and anxiety to Now, what's really unique about the model that the Movement School uses is obviously in order to get, the state funding that you get to be a charter school, which, by the way, a charter school gets 65 cents on the dollar of what a public school gets. So if a public school gets, I think it's like between $10,000 and $15,000 a year per student. That 100% amount, the Movement School is operating on 65% of that budget, and we are operating in the black since day one. Just like the Movement Center, after the initial cost of upfitting it, the monthly rents cover the overhead and a little bit for a contingency. Same thing is happening at the Movement Schools. And what's important to note about that is we're operating on a smaller budget, and yet our students, with all of the stats that I shared, are doing 300% better than their peers.
Amazing.
So what's happening is we have to provide a secular education, between 8 and 3 or whatever the school hours are. Like there's no religion or faith-based bias being communicated to the students during school hours. But because we own the building, the foundation owns the building, we can use the space for wraparound services that serve and support the community, and they can, in some cases, be faith-based. So today is a perfect example, right? Sports outreach ministry is about transforming lives and creating a connection to Christ, and utilizing sports as a methodology to connect with the gospel. And organizations like Sports Outreach Ministry are able to utilize the Movement School spaces outside of school hours. So we have 2 after-school programs that are on a sliding scale to the parents based on their ability to pay, and one of them is totally secular and another of them is faith-based, right? On the weekends, there is a church that operates out of each of the schools. There is, Congregations for Kids does a mentoring meetup for foster teens and potential mentors. There's just all these different organizations. There's a local Stomp group that, is it called Step or Stomp?
It's probably both.
Okay, that has their rehearsal in there. I know, I don't know. So that's a really kind of innovative way, because here's the thing, like the churches who have invested in private schools in inner cities have historically failed. I mean, they may at the beginning have great, intentions, but the problem with a a nonprofit like that is that it requires an ongoing supply of funds, right? And so Casey has always strived to create a sustainable model that doesn't require ongoing capitalization. So the movement schools, by operating in the black, fund themselves at this point. Yes, the $10 or $15 million that it took to renovate and buy the space, that is an investment, but the school is actually turning a return of 3 to 5% right now. So here's like the big exciting thing, in my opinion. We know we're making a difference in these kids' lives.
Absolutely.
We know we're making a difference in the families' lives, in the community's lives, right? Like, this space has been transformed. This whole block, we got the 2 schools right here, the elementary school and the middle school. There's a housing complex right here. We donated 6 acres of land to that, and so as a result, there's 186 affordable housing units in that. And we know affordable housing is a problem
in Charlotte. Sure is.
Charlotte. Everywhere, as I understand it, but definitely here in Charlotte. So, but with us having 65% of the budget and we're operating in the black, now we can have conversations with government officials in other states and say, hey, look at this model we've created. Look at the results we're seeing. If we can do that on 65 cents on the dollar, would you consider giving us 90 cents on the dollar to do it in your community? And, we're having a lot of those conversations now, and the feedback is pretty positive, because what politician wouldn't want to sign their name to something that is benefiting the most marginalized kids in the community? So what happens when that government official, that state, says, okay, yes, we're going to give you 90 cents on the dollar? Now, 2 things can happen. One, we can pay the teachers more, because teachers deserve to be paid more. Yes. They have a really hard job, especially these last few years. It has brought to light. I don't know if your kids are older. I had 3 little foster girls with me last year, and it was doing virtual learning. And man, my empathy for teachers went through the roof, because I was like, wow, this is so hard. Yep. So we could pay the teachers more, but what if we could turn around and go to people with really deep pockets, like the Mark Zuckerbergs and Elon Musks and Warren Buffetts of the world and the Bill Gates of the world, and say, what if you could take your hard-earned money that's sitting in a bank somewhere and instead invest it to make a difference in the lives of children and turn a 12 to 16% return on your money? Right. They're not getting that anywhere else, but very few places. So what we see is the opportunity to create a tipping point where the people with the deeper pockets would choose to invest in the most marginalized kids in the country, and that's where we're gonna move the needle. So we earmarked $200 million at the end of 2020 and another $100 million at the end of 2021, with the specific goal of opening 100 schools in the next 10 years. And we're a mortgage company.
Right. That is so cool. I love it. Yeah. I just absolutely love it.
It just blows me away. So, for us, our first mission is that first client. Right?
Yeah.
It starts with that first client, and that client is, they're not just a number. They're not just.
They're your little sister.
They are.
That's
they really
right.
are. When Heather got in the business, she worked for a doctor's office, and she called files charts. All right, and did you listen to that one?
I listened to that one.
Yeah. And so it was, this is somebody's chart, or somebody's file. And one of the
why does that bother her so much?
I know. Just the little things.
One of the things that really just one of the major reasons why I came to work at Movement so long ago was that it wasn't a chart or a file, it was a client.
Yeah, or a family.
And it was huge because I knew it walking in the door.
Yep.
Like, you spend 5 minutes with, Toby or Casey, and you knew right away. And not only that, but as a professional who is, I'm a salesperson, and I'm still out selling every day, and I'm still fighting for business every single day. And I'm fighting for business from the big banks that will cut their rates or whatnot, do whatever it is they got to do to get that next client in the door, so that their CEO can go have a $1 trillion house out in the middle of
big old yacht.
You know what I mean? Like, but I still have every tool I need.
Right.
And then some.
Exactly.
And then I get to see what really happens.
Right.
Like, when you look at what the profits really go to, it is amazing, and it makes me want to go out there and work harder, and do more business, and do more loans, and help more people. So I'm helping people on the front end, and I'm helping people on the back end, and I've got a servant's heart, and I've got a huge heart, and I would give anybody the shirt off my back. And those who know me know that, which I try to always have that tough girl exterior. Don't you dare tell anybody I'm sweet, right? I know. It's like I'm a bitch. That's what you tell everybody, right? So, but
we know better.
It just makes me want to do more,
right?
Because when you walk in that gymnasium,
it's amazing.
When I had the opportunity to pump up a little guy.
Okay, so first I have to share this. It's so funny. Heather and I were in the stands, and Cher goes up to the little boy who's on the team against her, and he's teeny. I mean, I talked to his mom, so I know he's 10. He's a twin, and his sister's like 1.5 feet taller than him, right? And he had all the hustle in the world, but he was so small compared to everyone else. And Cher got in his face and was like, there was a finger, and it was like it was nose to nose. And I said to Heather, I said, if you didn't know her, you would think she was blessing that child out. But she was giving him a pep talk.
Yes.
It was funny.
So what happened was, because we had 2 kids on our team and they had to sub out. And so a lot taller kid joined our team. And the kid on our team, he is also a very good ball player.
Yeah, very.
Well, the little guy on the opposite team was a very good ball player.
Yeah.
But he got intimidated. He did. And so I got up in his face and I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, like, you are a baller. You are a baller. Do not let that tall kid scare you.
If you could see her face right now and her finger pointing, and you were not hearing the words, you would think she was being aggressive at this kid.
You are a baller.
It was funny. So,
Lord, I hope his mom doesn't think I was she's good.
I'm sure not. But Cher, you say that about the opportunity to do more, and the schools are obviously our big focus and purpose that we've identified. But there's all these other ways right now that we're leveraging the profits of Movement and its affiliates to do big things. So, for example, last year we were able to give $110,000 grants to nonprofits around the country that were nominated by our employees. Wow. Because we know that, first of all, there are needs beyond Charlotte, and our employees in we have 5,000 employees. We are in now all 50 states, and our employees in Idaho and Houston and Providence, Rhode Island are going to know better where that money can be deployed in their local community than we are. Yeah. So by allowing our employees to nominate charities that they're passionate about, we've been able to do last year those $110,000 grants, and they're going to organizations, not to the big United Ways of the world. Not that there's anything wrong; they do a lot of great things, but they're not even going to notice $10,000. Right. Whereas some of these organizations, like Bridges of Nashua County, which provides support to battered women in New Hampshire, or Sleep in Heavenly Peace in Seattle, that supports parents who suddenly lose their children at birth. And you hear the stories of these organizations. McMahon Ryan in Northern New York, they help children escape from violence and sex trafficking. And you hear these stories pour in, and that's where it's easy, if you're a doer, to feel overwhelmed, because it's like, how can I affect this? But we see those $10,000 grants being deployed and used in ways that are strategically designed to make the biggest bang for the buck. This event was the results of a $10,000 grant to sports outreach last year. Not that they spent $10,000 on today, but this was one of the things that they were able to do with that. And that money came directly from Caris, the appraisal management company that we use in many of our markets. We also have an insurance company and title companies, and we do match giving. So
match giving is huge for me. Because part of my closing gift for my clients is I make a donation to Second Harvest Food Bank, which serves our community. And every month, I do my match giving, and the company matches that as well. And so every client that I've done a mortgage loan for, there's been a donation in their honor to the Second Harvest. And wonderful. I personally, Second Harvest is huge for me. It's one of those things that means a lot to me. I've gone down there and served and worked and just saw their operation being there, and it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the people, the flower planters are out there doing really incredible work.
They really are.
You know, we've Samaritan's Feet, for example, is a charity here in Charlotte. Manny and Tracy Ahome run it, and they're amazing human beings. But their goal is to create a world with no shoeless children. And you know, sitting in Charlotte, you think all the kids in Charlotte have shoes, right? But they don't. Or what we did is I think we did 18 cities around the country that each of those cities sort of opted in, and they raised half of the money within their community, and then the foundation matched that, and we hosted shoe distribution events in all those cities. And so, you know, you pull up at a Title I school and have it set up, or at a Boys and Girls Club, or, you know, depending on who we worked with in each city, and their process is you take off their old ratty shoes and you wash their feet, which is obviously symbolic to Jesus, you know, washing the feet of his disciples.
And let me just tell you, everybody listening, if you've never done that, it will change your life. Absolutely. And change the way that you, whether you're the one washing the feet, or you're the one changing out the water, or you're the one picking out new shoes for a kid. It'll change your life.
Yeah. And we all need that change, right?
We do.
We sure do. We get ourselves all spun up about the annoyances of our luxurious lives. and it's really easy to forget that there are kids in our midst that, yes, in Charlotte, they probably have shoes on their feet if they're going to school. But you're going to find when you take those shoes and socks off that their socks are crusty, or there are holes in their shoes, or they're jammed into shoes that are too big or too small. Yeah. And so, you know, we've done things like that. We've done packing parties. We hosted packing parties around the country in movement offices where we put together kits with an organization called Comfort Cases that provides backpacks and supplies to children entering the foster system, because you know what? Kids entering the foster system typically take their belongings into this new place.
The clothes that they have on.
Or if they have anything more than that, it's tossed into a garbage bag. You have a child, all of their possessions in their life are in a bag, or in a garbage bag. So, you know, we did these packing parties, and we brought in DSS officers to talk to our employees to raise awareness about, gosh, you know, right in your midst, you don't realize that there are these children who need a safe, loving home to go to. And, you know, so obviously we are a mortgage company. Obviously, you know, profit matters. We need to be successful in order to be able to do the things that we're striving to do. But we are always going to treat every borrower in their best long-term interest. And, you know, we are going to wrap our arms around one another as a team. We have a program called Love Works, which is an internal fund that employees contribute to via payroll deduction, and that fund is used exclusively to help employees in crisis. And, you know, that's great. It's sort of like an internal benevolence program, but the reality of what that is for those employees who need grants, we've given over $4.3 million in grants, not loans, to employees since we started the fund. And, you know, life happens.
It sure does. From hearing aids to a loss of a loved one.
Right? Yes.
From paying a mortgage to keeping the lights on.
Funeral expenses,
you name it. It's Love Works is very near and dear to our hearts, mine and Heather's hearts.
Yeah, because we all know people. I mean, there's people who get grants. It's all anonymous, so you don't know unless they say you can share our story. And plenty have said yes, you can share, because they feel like it was such an impactful thing to them. And you know, we right in November, this is a tragic story. We had a loan officer assistant in Idaho who was pregnant, 8 months pregnant with twins. She had a toddler at home. She and her husband were building a house. They just bought a new, you know, SUV, because we all know you can't fit 3 car seats in a sedan. And
from experience,
yes. And she and her husband got up to start their day, and she went to get in the shower, and he went to get the toddler out of bed, and she came out of the shower and found him dead on the floor. He had an aneurysm. Husband. 26 years old.
Oh my goodness.
A month before she had twins. And
oh my gosh.
Right. And sadly, she is not the only employee in the last few years, especially with COVID, who have lost their significant other. Right. And there's nothing that anyone could do to take away the heartbreak and the tragedy that she just went through. But because of Love Works, she had a couple months of a financial safety net that the bills were going to get paid, and we were going to wrap our arms around her and provide her with counseling and support and help her navigate what came next. So we actually have social work trained employees of the foundation that administer the Love Works Fund. So if an employee needs that support, it's not just, hey, here's a financial Band-Aid. It's, how do we help you navigate this? Because sometimes it's just general, like, man, I've made one bad financial decision after another, and I'm on a single income, and I've got a couple kids, and my car just broke down, and that's a crisis for that employee.
Yes.
And so sometimes the financial support is then matched with financial counseling.
Right.
You're like having conversations with employees like rims are not a necessity.
Right.
That's a real true story.
Right. So, Aimée, I love you.
I love you too.
And I am so glad that you came out and did this with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing this, because not everybody knows about what goes on behind Movement Mortgage.
And it's
Foundation.
you and your crazy ass husband. you know that you're very near and dear to mine and Eric's heart, and I love the heck out of you, girl. And I would have you, what I think I probably love the most is we are so different.
Yeah, I know.
But yet we think so much alike at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And I never get tired of you. Like, I don't.
Well, I love that. First, I will tell you that my husband overheard part of the podcast where you guys were talking about going fishing for bourbon. He's like, that's the kind of fishing I could do. And after seeing pictures of Eric's bourbon wall, he's like, this all makes so much more sense. But I did say to him, as I was actually staining the deck. We were building another addition onto the deck.
Of course.
And I was staining it, and I had it playing, and he was building the fence in the backyard, and I was like, gosh, there are so many things that I do not have in common with these women, specifically the two of you in your sports, your sports thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I absolutely adored today and watching I love watching sports up close and personal, but like the keeping track of all of the people. Trace gave me a tidbit to talk about with you guys, and I've already forgotten it.
Oh, no.
And it's Deshaun, somebody who's in trouble for paying people, trying to convince massage therapists to do something else, and he might be coming to the Carolina Panthers. And
Let's hope not.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a very good plan to me.
No. No.
Yeah, but
I love that man.
But
I love your husband.
I know, he's so funny. But I agree with you. Like, there are many ways in which we're divergent in, you're both sales-driven, incredible producers. You're rabid sports enthusiasts. You're rabid sports parents, and hard driving in that way. And, you're super competitive, and you're, wagering on everything. And I'm sort of like, I'd like to read a book and go camping.
But you know what? I'd love to read a book and go camping.
Yeah, I know.
Too. I am those things as well.
I know.
But that's just it. There are so many things that we are so different on, but we do have a lot in
so
common.
much in common.
But the biggest thing that we have in common is that we both have a heart for people.
That's right.
And so whether you're over here planting the flowers or I'm out here buying them, our heart is in the right place for both, and that's what. That's just what makes us all amazing. Yeah. And I think you're amazing. I love you. Yeah, I love you so much. I'm so glad that you are here today. And
thanks for having me.
And thank you. We will probably. You could talk for another hour. I know that. So we will probably have you back out to do another podcast. But so we do have to close this one down. And but Heather, what time is it?
It's What Southerners Say.
What Southerners Say. Aimée, do you want to tell our word today?
What's our word, Aimée?
You've already forgotten it.
Oh, no. Really?
Wait. Give me a symbol.
Their butts light up.
Summertime. Nighttime.
Oh, right. Lightning bugs.
Lightning bugs. Yes.
Who remembers catching lightning bugs and putting them in a jar?
Yes.
I still do it. I'm 40 some odd years old.
But there are less now, right?
There are less now. It's very sad. But when we're up
in the mountains,
we're up in the mountains, we do see more.
Yeah.
But I still do want to catch lightning bugs. I still want to put them in a jar. I still put down some little grass in there for them.
You know that they don't survive when you do that,
I know
right?
that. I usually let them go too, but I want to see the jar light up.
I know. But
So-
some people call them
Fireflies.
fireflies.
Isn't that vodka?
Hey,
Yeah.
You know, there's my in-laws live in Maggie Valley now, and they were in Waynesville while they were building their cabin, and there is this giant meadow up there in a holler that apparently a certain week and a half of the year, and it's different every year depending on when the temperature changes, there are millions of lightning bugs.
Really?
And it's, there's not a lot of light pollution up there, and so
That's gorgeous.
we were at their house one day, and it was about that time, and it's like late spring, it's like just before it starts to get warm, and it's in dusk, as lightning bugs are, and literally it was like this constant, it was
I bet it was.
it was beautiful. And of
gorgeous.
course I videotaped it, but like anything natural and amazing, it
doesn't look good
never
on
does
video.
justice on a
I always tried to take a picture of the moon, and it comes out absolutely not
I know,
like
you're
what
like,
I see.
gosh, it's so much bigger than that picture.
So y'all, if you're down here in the South, it's called lightning bugs.
Lightning bugs. Oh, and I do have a codicil to your comment about toboggans, going back to the beginning. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and they called it a tassel cap.
A tassel cap.
Yep.
I have never heard that.
I would take a beanie over a tassel cap.
Well, I guess
but
it's like
still
if
a
you have
toboggan.
the thing on the top,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that's
it does.
the
It does.
Oh, the
specific-
little
That's
pom-pom thing?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much again for
Thank you.
having
Love
for
you
coming
guys.
out, and we thoroughly enjoyed the basketball game. And I'm going to tell you, Sharon and I have merch. It is Be Sweet, Be Kind.
And be you.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a great, wonderful day.
Have a good day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.